Bold claiming that title, huh? I made a top-down arcade roguelike, and I think it's my Kirby's Dreamland of roguelikes. Let me explain. In 1992, video game legend Masahiro Sakurai directed his first game, Kirby's Dreamland. In a video, he would go on to explain that one of the pillars of Kirby's Dreamland was to make a game that would serve as an entry point for new gamers, in an era where games were typically pretty hard to finish. 34 years later, an idiot, me, had the idea to do something similar with their first commercial project. Teddy's Horde is a game with simple control, forgiving iframes, and weird lore. You see the parallel, I hope now. What do you mean if they don't swallow they... I'm not repeating that. There's very little I need to spell out for you. Making game isn't easy. Making a simple game without making it simplistic demands far more energy than you would believe. First of all, the base of my game is, well, my previous game. I'm taking design choices that are already 6 years old, from someone who isn't a pro, and I'm trying to elevate them from an arcade to a roguelike. Second of all, how do I balance between making a good entry point game and making a game people actually want to boot up and play again after their first try? The main attack in Teddy's Horde is a dash. You use it to ram enemies, but you also use it to reposition away from danger. That gives the player a way to attack and reposition in one go, which I hope is a good two bird one stone kind of situation. However, it is easily spammable, and while spamming can get you out of a pickle, you can run straight into enemies' attack. So by having enemies that sole role is to be a well-placed nuisance, my hope is to minimize spamming and encourage people to think a little bit before they dash around. The second attack is usually an AoE that will add a needed burst of damage. This usually speeds up boss encounters if you remember their behaviors. It's no Monster Hunter, but it'll feel satisfying to melt some of them after all the things they've done to you. Due to the fact that we only have 2 buttons to care about, you can play this game with just a mouse. A few people orbited to this control scheme accordingly, which is cool, because I mostly play that way during development. It feels validating, okay? Originally, the game had 0 dash cooldown, and since I was mostly playing with a mouse, and I don't click that fast, I never realized that you could legitimately cancel dash with dashes and become an... To remediate that, I just added a micro cooldown to the dash. It's the dash length plus 100 milliseconds, which is pretty hard to notice if you never spammed before, but it made a huge difference design-wise. You had to commit to where you were going. 100 milliseconds is still enough to connect a stray bullet or zone and get hit. Dash finally had a risk, albeit a small one. It makes spamming the kind of strategy that works at first, but slowly become unviable as difficulty ramp up. Okay, so I just told you the game has 2 buttons and you can play it with a mouse. That sounds like an arcade game with extra steps. So what actually make it even slightly more of a roguelike? Here's a few things that Teddy's Crews did not have back then. Characters, each with their own stats, AoE skill, and passive skill. While we could still be in the arcade territory, having a distinction meaningful enough for you to choose instinct based on your character rather than just because might already be a step in the right direction. Speaking of, you pick instinct, passive upgrades that stack and change how you play, or rather complement how you play. You're good at combos? Combo strike up your damage the higher it is. You're not good at dodging? Pick an healing instinct and retaliation, so every time they hurt you, you hurt them back. Want to delegate the hurt? Corpse Burst make enemies explode, and the one that dies from it explode too. That sounds graphic and gross. But it also is. I'm sorry. Okay, so the game can be played with a mouse. That's not enough to make a comparison to Kirby, I hear you say? Well, on top of that, let's have a look at the current roguelikes. Most of them, the one without light, are tough games. Some will have you spend 10s or 20s of hours before you clear a first run. Some people enjoy it, obviously. But if you're new to the genre, and all you do is itch, sometimes it's enough to reach a conclusion that the genre is just not for you. And that's where Teddy's Horde come in. You have the first difficulty that demands 5 minutes off of you. It's not a lot. Sure, you can still lose, but 5 minutes, 20 increments of difficulty, you can see the end within reach quite quickly. You get to do an accelerated version of the typical roguelike experience, with a laser focus on surviving and getting stronger. Okay, so the game has this first run that's like baby mode. You finish it, 5 minutes have passed, you understood the loop. Now what? Not going to lie to you and act like I solved this one. Player retention is a challenge. The difficulties are genuinely different in my experience though. For example, scoldings start instantly hotter, introducing elite units, and swapping the regular bosses with their elite counterpart, with new or improved attacks. You'll hurt less and be hurt more. Instinct choice will matter far more if you want to survive the hurdle. I found myself pausing a second before choosing instinct in higher difficulties, so it might be a positive sign that it does matter. Your character is another layer of difficulty. Yes, John can tear through everything with ease, but everything can tear through him just the same. Do you have what it takes to survive with your favorite glass cannon? Or will you learn the ropes with the tankier character first? Another way to add replayability is to add multiplayer. You can bring friends to the couch co-op experience, so you can all argue because Steve is distracted instead of picking his instinct. You're slowing everyone down, Steve. We hate you, Steve. Game design is all about intent, constant and ending back and forth between your features and what is the intent behind them. They probably understood that while making Kirby's Dreamland. A clear intent on positioning in an entry-level platforming. A clear vision of this cute, dancing character that would bring joy to children and later adults that grew up with the franchise. As someone who never studied game design, never worked in a gaming company, and never had much exposure to the industry itself, I can confidently tell you that this challenge is one that I'm not done with. It is not a problem that I've solved yet, and it will take decades before I can proudly say, this is as polished and replayable as something the director of HAL Laboratory could do. Hell, it might never happen. This guy made Smash Ultimate. I play that game every day. No reason whatsoever. I just boot it up and play a few rounds against the CPU. For fun. I don't expect the silly little game that I've made to be this fun to people. That might be why I sell my games for 3 buckaroos. But part of me gotta keep it real. I genuinely was inspired by some aspect of Kirby. You can see it in the design of all the little critters, because they are simple, rotund, and messed up. All of them. I've come to love all of them during the development, which is not as easy as it sounds. And before you ask, no, I don't love them equally. Horse is my favorite. Couldn't you tell already? But through this journey, I've learned a ton, and I slowly got an idea of the difference between making a prototype, which I have a ton of, and making an actual game that I hope people could connect to, and like, maybe, if I dare dream, obsess over to the point of making their own OC in that universe. God, that'd be so cool. His studies hold the Kirby of roguelikes. Will someone stab me because to them roguelikes should only be rogues in the purest of meaning? Is a question I could ask. If the answer wasn't obviously no, of course not. Despite my best efforts, I am but a small indie developer on their very first project. It would be pretentious of me to go see the best-selling game of the Kirby franchise? Yeah, I'm that, but for roguelikes. It obviously isn't the point I wanted to make. Time, and you, can tell me if the game will have a lasting impact on a particular individual, a particular group of friends, or even someday a fandom would come out of it. I honestly doubt it, but it warms my heart to think of such a scenario. All in all, I've set myself to make an indie game, and I did. So, I've made my first step into game development, and I'll stick to it, filled with hopes and dreams instead of money and Thank you so much for watching this video. Teddy's Horde is available on Steam and itch.io. Link in the description. I wish you a perfect day. Bye bye.